Welcome back to our channels, Warriors. We are still growing. If you haven't had your prima smash that subscribe button, go ahead and have her smash it right now. Today, we have a special guest, something you guys have been asking for. You want to hear more from the green side, right? So I went out and I found a retired OG lieutenant. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, man?
Rudy Lopez. I started in 1982 at Soledad. I think back then might have been 11 prisons. I'm not sure. Galt was under construction back then, so I ended up going to the academy over in Southern California. I think it was Norco.
Really?
Yeah, for 3 weeks. Three
Okay,
weeks.
1982. How many weeks was that academy?
3 weeks.
3 weeks?
Yeah.
Man, the only one I had ever heard of was a 6 week one. You're way past that.
Yeah. I was thinking about it earlier. We got post certified right away. The range, baton, and chemical. And then I remember having a class on cell searching. And then we had a guest speaker, a sergeant from San Quentin, who had a contract on his head. He told us about that. We had a spelling test, 50 words. They gave us the words to study. So we all did good on that. It was just a lot of war stories, prepping us for what we're getting into. And like there was the big four they kept talking about. What's the big four? The big four is Soledad, DVI Gladiator School, San Quentin, and Folsom, and that's the prisons. The violent prisons back then were those prisons. Pelican Bay was under construction. Probably, I'm not sure, and there was no Corcoran. So we rotated these inmates from those prisons round and around we went.
Man, so did you have any type of military experience prior to entering the department?
Yes, I went in the Navy out of high school. I graduated early, went in the Navy, and that helped me tremendously. I think the veterans actually excel in law enforcement in general because paramilitary, and we adapt right away, and that helped me tremendously. Even though I was only 21, just turned 21. So no, I was been 21 for a little bit, but I was still young. I think there was about 800 officers back then. Did I recall, there was only two of us that were 21.
Man,
And yeah, we had the cops were older back then. We had a lot of veterans from Fort Ord, which is right down the road from Soledad.
okay.
Yeah, so
So what made you join the Department of Corrections, right? Without the R, without the
oh
rehabilitation.
yeah,
So what made you? Did you watch, like, was there movies back then about
no,
prison?
yeah, this is a funny story. I got a taste of law enforcement. My final year in the Navy, I was shore patrol overseas, and I was trying to find my way, and I was like, I think I can do this. Right before I discharged, I had to do an interview with a career counselor, a good dude, and he asked me, "What the hell are you going to do out there?" And I told him, "I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to be successful at it, but it's going to be something different no one in my family's ever done." And damn, I was the first and only.
Man, walk me through the first pin that you hit, and what was that like?
Well, man, it was I didn't have mentors. Well, listen to this. I had zero knowledge of the prison system. So when I filled out my application, I put prison guard, and I just had a high school diploma, and that was it. And they roasted me on the interview, roasted me. And the only thing that saved me is they saw that I was a veteran, and that I had I was a cop the last few years overseas. That helped me, and that got me over the hump. Or else they were desperate. I know they were because they were short of staff, like always. But that got me gave me a date for the 3 week academy.
Were they tripping that you put prison card at the
Oh,
time?
yeah, oh God, they got me good. They had me stuttering, and but they passed me. I'm surprised. But it was different because you did a written test. It was funny because we did a written test, and I imagine it wasn't that hard, but I had a headache, and they told you right on the spot if you passed. So they went up to the guy next to me and said, and I thought he was sharp. He was wearing a suit. He had these nice glasses on. The sergeant fronted him off. You flunked for the third time.
Wow.
I was like, get out of here, loser. I remember laughing to myself. But check this out. We did the physical part. Well, we had to get a physical, but part of it was done inside the pen.
Wow.
And I'm looking back, and that was an inmate doing that shit, checking my blood pressure, heart.
Wow.
Yeah, he was wearing blue. I never forgot it. So what the hell? So
Man.
it was a different world, and you got your training for when I reported, I went into shock, culture shock, I would say, because I wasn't ready for it because we didn't get no tours or nothing. But we were on prison grounds for 3 weeks, and the inmates, we ate in the inmate dining hall, and it was the females. We were eating with the females who were serving us, and they would pick your tray up like you're in a restaurant.
Man.
I remember I happened to sit. We were all these the round tables, and I was sitting there, and it happened to be all Mexican staff at the table I was sitting at. So we're talking, and we're done. So you push your plate forward. That gives the inmates indicates that it's time to get the plate. Well, they come to get our plates, and all as they're getting our plates, this Mexican inmate, she gave a little whistle and looked at them, and they put our plates down. And then the Mexican female inmates came and got our plates, and they trying to flirt with us. And oh man, I was shocked. They were trying to get numbers, stuff like that. Yeah, I just kept my head down. I was trying to get through this. So I
Wow.
was getting a taste of it. And then the room I had, if you open the curtains, it faced the yard, the recreational yard. And I opened it on a weekend. I went into shock because it was a ton of idiots out there. So God damn. But yeah, we didn't learn much there. We reported we had orientation for just a couple days, and you hit the line. They put me in the visiting room. It wasn't very good. That wasn't a good move on their part.
Right.
I wasn't learning nothing there. I was just hearing war stories, but I was getting ordered over a lot, so I'd be on the line, and I got the impression right away the sergeants were running that penitentiary with an iron fist.
Man.
Oh yeah,
So
and go ahead.
real quick, what uniform did you have? Like equipment, baton, spray, grenades, radio,
Oh,
anything? Keys?
it's great. Nothing, man. Good question. We had nothing. We had the green pants, the tennis shirt, and the only jumpsuits you saw were the security squad was wearing them, and the shoe. They wore the jumpsuits, and it was pretty cool. I was like, wow, who are these guys? They're all handpicked, which I liked. At shift change, they just didn't. You were locked in there. They all left together.
Yeah.
They all walked out together. They weren't talking to nobody. These guys were the shit. I said, I need to be I need to be one of these guys. But inside I was scared of working in this pen at 21. But then I'm trying to volunteer to go in the worst part of the prison. And I remember I did a memo. Just had a few months in. I waited for the lieutenant to come out the gate, and I handed it to him. And he said, "What's this?" And I told him, and he smiled at me and just patted me on the shoulder and walked away. He could have roasted me, but he didn't. He was being nice. And we talked about that many years later. He remembered that day. And the lieutenants were unapproachable. You didn't talk to a
Yeah.
lieutenant. The chain of command was strong back at Soledad. The chain of command was strong, and captains forget it. Don't even look at them. I joined a gym right away, and there was a captain in there I'd recognize, and there's a bunch of us new COs training, working out, and he wouldn't talk to us, and at all. He wouldn't even look our way, but he knew who we were. Shame on him.
Right. So there you are, a youngster. You see the green jumpsuits. You're awestruck in a way. Did you ever get the opportunity to work in ADSEG?
Yeah, I got the opportunity by accident. It was 1985. I was on VR, and you had to be handpicked. They had a special list for the VR staff to rotate in that, and it was no longer the shoe. We discharged those guys, and it was an ad seg, but they were running. You just couldn't work. They covered their own overtime and covered their own VRs. Somehow I slipped in there, and I said, "Oh man, this is my chance." And I busted my ass and worked hard. Actually went drinking with them a few times after work. We used to do that a lot. Um, and they liked me. And one of them went to the sergeant and told him, "Hey, let's keep this kid." And I never left. I finished my whole VR in there,
Nice.
and I stayed there till like 1989, 1990. I promoted, but I was doing acting sergeant in there off and on in the late 80s. So I've learned a lot in there, and that's where I got bird's eye view and cell extraction, stuff like that, and a lot of use of force was going on, a lot of undocumented use of force. I'll tell you what, those veteran cops, they ran it with iron fist, and you didn't mess with them. And if you assaulted a cop, I got the impression, I wasn't one of them. I wasn't a leader in there at all at that time. You're going to get dealt with.
Right, right. So what we'll get to that right now too, but like what in the 85, for the record, I was born in 1984, man. So I was shitting my diapers, right? Where you were putting in work in the hole, the real hole. What was a day-to-day operations like? I'm talking about yard release, showers, incidents.
Yeah, we'd get in there right away early. Because of the military, out of my whole career, I was late one time. One time. And I would go to work 30 minutes early every day. So if I was a 7 o'clock cop, that means I was there at 6:30 to help set up for the food. And these OGs, man, I learned a lot from them. They were ruthless. Like, we were setting up the trade. Let's say it's Mexican food. I'm laughing. I'm visualizing what I'm gonna tell you. They had chorizo and eggs. When the cooks would make it, they would cook the eggs separate from the chorizo. So you had two half pans there. These cops got a spatula and scraped all the chorizo off and put it in a separate tray. And got some eggs separate and put it in another tray. And I'm watching. Then he mixed all the chorizo grease with the eggs. They get the tortillas and they set them aside. Then they replace it with bread. So then we go feed these guys and start our shower routine. Then after showers, we go clean the tiers up. Then it was break time for a few minutes, and hey, you want a burrito, youngster? Like, now we're eating chorizo burritos.
No, I get it, man. I get it. So
Very good, man.
you mentioned cleaning the housing unit because that is something that I've seen go away throughout the years. I mean, you had AdSec cops hustling with a broom, a
Oh,
mop.
totally. That was programmed. If you didn't hustle like that, you're going to get kicked out of the unit. That was programmed. You pick up trays, you sweep the tier, and you mop it. And the inmates, they kept their bar fronts. We had expanded metal open bars. They kept their cells pretty clean. Then we had 6 cells total of isolation where it was double doors. Those guys, you had to act up to get put back there. But yeah, it was programmed, and I think they were feeding hot meals back then for lunch. Before we went to the box lunch, they were getting hot meals too. So you're busy all day. If you were lazy, you could not work in the SHU or AdSec because you were on your feet all day. You had doctor's line, you had psych line, you had committee, running yard, and then there was always a shooting on the yard all the time. So you were just busy all day.
Let's fast forward to that real quick. I know the use of force, from what I heard, was different. You mentioned shooting, and I mean, we'll keep it real. I heard
Okay.
one-on-one fights.
Well, yeah, it's funny. If you look back, corrections, the department was the only agency at the time shooting inmates and killing some of them for a basic fist fight. If you
Man,
look at that,
yeah, no, that's
that's
what
how
I'm
it was.
getting at.
Yeah, that's how it was. That's exactly how it was. And so, yeah, you just had to be on your toes in that seg.
Is it? Do you think it's because maybe they already considered them violent felons, and hey, this is the last draw?
So, I don't know, man, but I didn't. I wasn't at that stage of my career. I wasn't
Right.
enforcing and making policy. I was going with it, and I was a gunner in AdSeg for I don't know about a year and a half, and I shot the weapons, but there's always a warning round.
Right. Right. Was there paperwork behind that back then?
Yeah, there's a 115 and an incident package, but it was different, man. I'm telling you, they had these clerks, man. Part of the lockups, we had these inmates from the protective housing units. We had Soledad was very famous for the protective housing units. You had cops in there, you had judges, serial killers, and those are the inmates that worked in the AdSeg. And these guys, a lot of them were sharp. former cops. We had this one guy, a couple cops. I had a LA County Sheriff working for me, and I had a LAPD. Those were our clerks and porters. And so I witnessed this. What I'm going to tell you, we'd have an incident, stabbing, shooting, whatever, and the lieutenant would start gathering the paperwork, and he would tell the clerk, these are quotes like, okay, we had a stabbing on the yard, east side, yard 2. Here's the names. Here's the reports. They both survived. Put the report together.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a great job to be a lieutenant. I'm like,
Right.
oh, what's the point?
That's the whole reason why I promoted, man. But let me tell you, the times have changed. The times have changed. So,
hold on. When I did promote to lieutenant, I remember because I was part of that era still. And I was like, oh my God, I have arrived. The rest of my career is going to be so simple. Little I know they would take the inmates from us. We're doing it. That was bullshit.
Man, I hear you. Man, so the reason I brought up is there was paperwork, because I would go on Psalms, right? That came after the C-files, those big-ass C-files. And I would look at like 1987 San Quentin memorandum. Shooting on the yard, inmate Leon stabbing inmate Soto, fired the Mini 14, inmate Soto dead, period. I'm like, wow.
They weren't as elaborate. They weren't as detailed. Paper was a lot more simple. There was no use of force packages. It was, oh God, dang. Now look at the paperwork. I left in 2010, but these kids are telling me now that 602 is a big investigation now, I hear.
I mean, you look at somebody the wrong way now. I mean, you look at somebody the wrong way now, man, and it's your ass, literally. You don't even have to look at somebody the wrong way, and it's still your ass.
I saw the lieutenant, man, one time. I had a couple years there. I was third tier, and he tells me, I need this cop. This inmate pulled out. He goes, hey, look at the 115 youngster. And I'm looking at it, and he goes, hey, look at this. He had the worksheet, and it said guilty already on it, and it had the inmate's statement on it before I pulled him out. He's laughing. Shelby goes, look at, he's already guilty, and I got his statement already. He's laughing. I was like in shock, and I looked at this guy like he was some god. And sure enough, I pulled the guy out, and he did, his paperwork's done already, and then he gave it to the inmate clerk, who typed it up, and it got distributed, and that was the end of that.
Man, so that was just like that era, right? Like, I mean, inmates were on board, or convicts. They were convicts back then.
Oh, yes. Big difference from a convict and an inmate. Big difference. So a lot more respect.
How was the rapport in the housing unit, in the ADSEG back then, with the inmates and the staff?
Once you establish yourself and got a reputation in there, you could control the tier. You can somewhat control the violence. I had a partner who would tell me, he'd been there for years. He goes, hey, Rudy, we're going to have an incident Friday sometime on the yard or the tier. I go, how do you know? Because it's my day off. Right. Out of respect, they're not going to do it when I'm here. And he was right. All the time. He would laugh at us, So there was a respect issue there.
Yeah, that's something I haven't elaborated much on this channel. Like, hey, sometimes a little birdie would tell you might want to not come in and work tomorrow, and it would kick off. They'd be looking out for you.
Yeah, they would. The officers that made a career out of being a CO, they would get that type of respect. Down the road, they've been there for 20 years or whatever. They might whisper in their ear.
Yeah. So you mentioned you promoted a sergeant. Did you promote into ADSEG?
No. I got sent to a Soledad, had 3 facilities: North, South, and Central. I went to North facility, which was a level 3, and it was a whole new prison to me. But I had some great mentors, great sergeant mentors there, and they showed me how to be a legit sergeant. And first thing I did was start training my staff, because I didn't touch on something. I got treated pretty shitty, I thought, by the veteran cops and some of the supervisors, because I was new and I was young. Like, we were always on lockdown. And where inmates weren't out. So the watch sergeant thought it'd be funny to put me in the culinary washing pots.
Man.
And the watch commander went along with it. And they don't realize that I was working, after I got out of the Navy, I had to go through all this testing process. Well, I had to go work in the fields.
Yeah.
I went from the Navy to work in the fields. God, that was a humbling moment. Damn. And so I was so grateful to have a job washing a pot. I wasn't blinking.
Right, right,
You
right.
know, they would come in smirking, smoking cigars, watching me. I'm looking at them, thinking, "This ain't shit. I could do this all night. Let's do this." And they thought they were torturing me, fucking with me, but they weren't. But months down the road, I was in the pot room again, and this brand new sergeant, and I got to see him later in life and thank him for what he did. I got called to the watch office, like, oh, what I do now? And he pulled me in there and he closed the door. He goes, I know what they're doing to you, and it's wrong, and you never go back in that pot room. And here's your following days off. He changed everything for me, and he looked after me. And I saw him at a party probably 20 years later, and I pulled him aside. He knew who I was, and I told him that story. And I said, "Oh, forever grateful for what you did for me." You know,
Yeah, I respect you for that, man. My hat's off to you because that's the last of a dying breed. Almost people that are just willing to work anything and anywhere.
yeah, I was happy, and I'm looking back at some old photos, and there's times I got full of myself because I have this picture of a name tag. It says Rudy Lopez, and underneath it says "motherfucker in charge," and I was wearing that on probation.
Wow.
What the fuck was I thinking? I got pulled in the watch office. The watch commander ripped me a new ass, and how I got a hold of that name tag? There was this veteran sergeant out in front of the prison at the entrance building selling them.
Wow.
And I said, "Oh, that sounds cool. Let me have one." Oh my gosh, that damn name tag got me in trouble.
So what year did you promote to sergeant?
I'm thinking it was 89 or 90.
Okay, so if you were a sergeant doing your thing in your office, right, and the phone rings, there's an officer in the building and says, "Hey, sergeant, I can't control my building. I need your help." How would that go?
I would go out there. I was a hands-on supervisor, and I wanted to let those cops know that I had their back. That's why
Okay.
during breaks I was an IST instructor at that time. I was training them, and yeah, I was hands-on as far as supporting my cops to the bloody end,
That's good to
and I
hear.
wanted them to know that.
That's good to hear because I even caught like the tail end where they would just hang up on you, right? Hey, sergeant's like, "What are you doing calling me?" And just hang up on you. You ever deal
No,
with that?
no, 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 never, no, no. I never dealt with that, and I was trying. I didn't want my lieutenant to know what was going on. I wanted my lieutenant to think everything was under control, and most part it was, And I would only bother my lieutenant after an incident and say, "This is what happened, and this is how I handled it,
Right.
and here's your paperwork." And I took pride on that.
As a sergeant, how was it the majority of time? Where did you find yourself hanging out, putting out fires, lecturing the youngsters?
Uh, yeah, you start the day off putting out fires. That North facility was a pretty active yard, and then during count, that's when we kick in our training and some expectations and how to handle situations. I would also help the cops sell feed back then a lot because there's 3 cops, I think 350 inmates. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So we go out there. I had no problem sell feed. I even did that as a lieutenant.
Nice, nice. Me too. You mentioned IST. Were you ever in CERT? And I know I talked to you a little earlier.
Yeah, yeah, and I was on Salinas Valley's team. I landed up getting on cert later in my career, and I regretted that because the training we got was incredible, and I was under a really really good commander who happened to be my best friend at the time. And yeah, we were the first team at Salinas Valley '96. I was class 34. Went to the academy. I was the only lieutenant going through it. I was a lieutenant at that stage. That's how late I was in life.
Man, what does CERT stand for the viewers?
Special Emergency Response Team, but now they changed it to CRT,
Yeah,
Crisis Response Team.
yeah. I'm wearing the hoodie for you, man.
Oh, very nice.
So how did
Oh
you
yeah, yeah, yeah. I see it. Recognize.
how did you catch wind of it? Did you see? Did you know who members were? Was it
I knew all the members.
you
I knew
did?
all the members at that. Yeah, I knew 90% of them, and they were all solid, solid, solid. Good, good. And some of I still have. I made some lifetime friends. I would say that lifetime friends. We had a little reunion where the commander retired, and most of the team showed up, the original team, and we laughed so hard because some of the guys they're not working out anymore, and they look really bad. And it was hilarious. We talk about qualifying a core leg out, just touch your toes and you're
Yeah.
qualified. It was fun, and we still get together and chop it up.
How was your experience at the CERT Academy?
Oh man, it was. I felt like we got some good training, but they were there to weed the week out
Right.
quick, real quick. I mean, they took our car keys from us, and from there on, we had to run everywhere. You know, we get PT with the purpose, do with some log runs, and here's how I broke it down. So to make it easier on myself, I'd wake up in the morning. I knew we had PT coming, and I said to myself, "Okay, let's dress, let's do this, and you got to survive till breakfast without drawing attention to yourself." Now I'm eating in the chow hall. I couldn't eat a lot initially. I was just drinking a lot of milk and eating bread. I don't know why. I just couldn't eat. I got to survive till noon. And by law, they could not run you 1 hour after your meal. And I knew that. So they march us really hard or whatever. So now it's lunchtime and I'm eating. And I was eating a lot still. And I lost a lot of weight. So after lunch, I say, I got to make it till dinner. Same thing. I'm looking at the watch, clocking. Now I'm eating dinner, and I'm saying now I got to make it to the armory where we put our weapons away. And I knew once we put our weapons away, I was pretty good. But then they were slick. They would get a unit together. Okay, you're going to assault this building tomorrow morning. I need you to put a plan together. So now you're up half the night putting an assault plan together.
Right.
That's how I looked at it. And I came back skinny, and they threw my boys, man, they threw an incredible party for me. I think I had the team record. I drank 540s.
Man.
Yeah. I can't barely drink one now, but I was slamming them, and that was a good time.
It reminds me, man. I once drank 540s and 2 Mad Dog 2020s. It was all bad.
Oh,
It was all bad, man. In one
yeah,
sitting.
loud and clear.
So was there anybody that didn't make it that quit?
Oh man, listen to this. We get there, and first thing that we report to our bunks, they want to do inventory. They're inventorying our shit, and they're yelling. This guy drove from Utah. Him and his commander was a special guest instructor, and they drove from Utah, and it took him a few days. And the guy looked like a hog, and I said, he's gonna be all right. So we go to the range, and he flunked right off the top. He
Wow.
flunked, and back then we were qualifying with a Mini 14, and he flunked it. And an hour later, he's driving back to Utah.
Man, that's
That's
so.
bad.
What a
That
lonely
was
drive.
horrible. I felt bad for him, man. It's like, oh my gosh, he was here. He was only here for a couple hours.
I
Yeah,
seen
they
it.
beat him after a week.
You don't want to be the one heading back to the institution driving by yourself. You got to explain to everybody why you didn't
Oh,
pass.
hey, check this out. This is real. My commander, my best friend, goes, Rudy, check this out. Right before I leave, if you flunk the academy, we don't recycle here on this team. That means you're done.
Right.
He goes, but with a smile, and he meant this, and I love him for it. I can recycle you for a medical. So what you do, quote, you pull over on the side of the road and you get the butt of your weapon and you break your hand.
Man.
And then he goes, I can recycle you. And my response is, okay. And my state of mind at that time was like, I'll do it, just to
Yeah.
be with you guys. And I would have, I was done like that. Yeah. And I told him that story every time we have a beer, and he's like, he apologized to me. I go, no, man, it's all love, man.
What sidearm did you guys have?
We had
38?
38s. Yeah. Those other weapons that come out till later. We had I think we had side handles too.
Okay.
Yeah, batons. But I had a partner I went through. They tortured him. I was at Salinas Valley team. He was a CTF's team, and CTF didn't prep him properly, and they went after him hard, really hard. This guy was a specimen. This guy was a physical freak, and he graduated, man. But man, we to this day I'm in touch with him, and we laugh about it. They went after him really hard. They didn't get him.
Was CTF and Salinas Valley a combined team or two individual teams?
There was two individuals, and they eventually combined for the budget.
Oh yeah.
I was on both teams, so I got in a political car accident. We could talk about that later, and I am transferring to CTF's team, which is
Okay.
a lot younger, but some good men. I'm still in touch with that team too.
No, I'm tracking, man. So here you are. you're doing it. You're leading by example. You're the tip of the spear. You're young. You're hungry. You're doing what you want to. You're doing what you're setting out. Your goals, right? You mentioned a political car wreck, right? When did things start? When did things get political for you?
Okay, well, things got political as soon as you promote. I found that out really quick because you look at it, you're working shift work. You got 3 shifts, you got different days off. Everybody wants those weekends and holidays.
Yeah.
So it's cutthroat, and I saw that right away. But I was, I was a company man. I went to work, did my thing, but I didn't compromise myself.
Right.
I'm not going to bootlick and shit for some weekends, but I did my job. But yeah, I saw it right away. Then I got caught up at the academy, man. Got caught up at the academy. I was the Army school in Mini 14 and got caught up and I got expelled
Mm.
from the academy as a sergeant.
Man.
That's when the politics kicked in really hard. The warden was very upset. They did a big investigation. We were exonerated of everything, but I got a letter of instruction because I didn't sign out when I left prison, the academy grounds. So they gave me a letter of instruction. And I said, wow, that's pretty petty.
They had to get you on something, right?
Yeah, and I said, damn, because the Calipat staff, their warden laughed at it and threw it out. Right. They had no repercussions. So I was on the lieutenant's list at the time. I was third rank, I think. And I was going to promote. I was ready, but the warden was still upset with me behind that incident. So I was holding the list up.
Let me dive right into that because we talked prior and you talked about holding up the list. So for the viewers, right? For the viewers, when somebody says they are holding up the list, meaning they are eligible to promote, but that institution, that hiring authority, that warden will not promote you because they're trying to pick up somebody else, right? So tell us about that.
As soon as I got picked up, the list exploded at CTF, and they hired a bunch of people behind me, and they were some good staff members. Nothing towards them at all. It wasn't their fault that I was holding the list up. But that was my first political accident. Well, then it didn't help the situation when I was signing out. We had to go see the warden, and I wasn't feeling it. And I didn't disrespect her, but I just looked at her and said, "I don't got time for this stuff. I got stuff to do." And I got up and left, and my partners were in shock. And I was feeling myself because those staff members that were a lot older than me that treated me bad, those senior lieutenants, I went looking for a few of them. And I got in their face and told them, I'm going to come back to your supervisor, you piece of shit,
Yeah, right.
They were shocked that I talked to them that manner. But yeah, I went looking for some people. I had a hit list.
So we're both out now, right? You retired, I resigned. What is your take on the fact that administration will hold up a list, will not purposely pick somebody up? Do you think that's unethical? Do you think that's poor hiring practice? Personal?
It was personal on my part. Yeah, a lot of it's personal. Some people are good. They're not good cops, but they're good test takers.
Right.
And they have a college degree. They don't got a lick of a game or common sense. They don't know how to work that gray area because you have black and white in corrections, and you used to have a ton of gray area. Correct. I thrived in the gray area. That was me, Mr. Gray. And yeah, some of it was legit where this guy's just a turd, and I don't blame him. But then listen to this. I was on a lot of hiring panels. And as a lieutenant, we interviewed these potential sergeants, and there are some turds in there. And you're like, oh, hell no, I don't want this guy working for me. And I score him low and then go talk to the warden and tell him, hey, this guy's, he's horrible. And then they pick him up.
Of course.
The hell is that about?
Of course.
What the hell's that about?
Man, you're letting the public know the truth, man. This is the truth.
Yeah. And then, well, listen. Then that one turd lands up promoting, and he's my sergeant for the day in ADSEG. And we had I'll never forget it. We had a stabbing on the yard, a good one. The horn goes off. I stand up, and I watched him stand up, and he responded to the restroom.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I saw it, man. He responded to the restroom, but I got on the horn. And I had my partner I could rely on. I called him over, and we handled it. And he was just, he was too much.
Man, so I hear you about that gray area. I too operated in that gray. I thrived there. I had these young cops tell me, "Hey, show me the gray area." I'm like, I'm not gonna show you the gray area.
Oh,
If
you're doing
if,
that on your own.
if you don't know how to operate in there, don't operate in it. You're gonna get in trouble.
Yeah, yeah. You'll make your career really difficult if you don't know how to operate in the gray area. What I mean by that, not everything has to be documented to get your point across.
Now it does with body worn
Yeah,
cameras.
in today's world, yeah, I imagine. But I remember doing cell searches with a veteran cop, and they'd find some pruno, and they would, hey, youngster, this is how you handle this, and he'd
Right.
pour a bunch on his bed. Break him down a steak, and the convict most of the time wouldn't say nothing back. He didn't get a 115. In today's world, I started right before I retired. Oh, you're going to get a 602 from that convict, and he's going to go tell the sergeant, and it's a different convict now, totally different creature.
Totally, man. So, how long were you a sergeant for?
I think about 7 years, and I think I was a lieutenant for 14. I was acting
Wow.
captain for about a year and a half. So I was number two in seniority for a long, long time as lieutenant, and my dear good friend to this day was number one. And I said, I'm going to be number one, but he actually, that's the one that he's 21 years old, started with me. He retired after I did.
Man, so here you are, salty veteran, right, of the Navy and of the department. During your time as the officer sergeant and lieutenant, is there any incident that stands out in your mind that was very violent?
Um, Soledad was had these huge yards. You could have up to like 1,500 inmates on a yard, and the riots were huge there. But Salinas Valley's riots were a lot smaller, maybe 150 inmates, but extremely violent. Extremely violent. I remember they had a riot. I can't even forget who was fighting. We had so many over there. But as I was responding, this inmate got shot in the face with a Mini 14. It grazed him. It just sliced him like someone had a knife, sliced his face wide open. And I stopped running, paused, and looked at him like, damn, and then kept running. And that was a long day because the poor officer who shot that inmate, he froze up in the tower. We had everybody proned out, and someone goes, "Hey, man, he's freaking out up there." And I had other supervisors in the yard, and I went up there to talk to him, and he looked at me, and his first thing out of his mouth, "You're one of them." I was, oh, he looked, he saw Lieutenant Bars. That's all he saw. And I said, "Oh my God, this guy might shoot me." And
Man,
I went to but I calmed him down and told him he's gonna be fine. It was a good shoot, and got him relieved. And then, that was just a long night. I think I spent the night there that night.
now I'm assuming this was before the alarm response procedure where you form up on a line and rally the troops.
Yeah, yeah. But that was, starting to come into play. This was like 96, 97, 98. I don't think we had that back then.
How did you guys used to quell violence back then?
Well, let's go back to the 80s because
Yeah.
use of force was a lot different. If you had a fight and there was no weapon involved, that means there was no incident package. And we just monkey piled on these guys. We would come running in deep, and we didn't have pepper spray or vest. Control would pass out a few batons as you're running by, several batons, but 9 out of 10 times you didn't have nothing but your hands. So we'd monkey pile on these guys, separate them, and put them in cuffs, and I'll be honest with you, man, there was cops a little bit injured here and there, but they just shook it off, man. They shook it off because there wasn't a lot of workman's comp claims back then, but there was a lot of cops going out on stress back then.
Really?
You can get a stress retirement really easy back in the 80s.
So
Really quick.
So the convicts had weights on the yards. They had tobacco. They're big, they're buff, they're smoking, they're fighting, they're killing. And there you guys are just grabbing them?
Yeah, exactly how we did it. Monkey pile. And sometimes the cops would get hurt, like say, be on the bottom of this monkey pile. I had a good friend of mine, he ended up retiring. He got his neck injured and had to retire behind a monkey pile. Yeah, but I can understand why the public is upset about the weights. These guys were huge, but a lot of them didn't squat, man. It was funny.
Yeah.
Leg day, they really didn't exist too much, not with all of them. You see a lot of deadlifters, not like today's world.
Were you anticipating trouble when they took away the weights?
Yes. I was shocked how smooth it went. Talking about that, I'm Salinas Valley now, and the warden didn't really care for me. A new warden, he didn't really care for me, and I didn't care for him. We had history, and actually the history we had was good. but he promoted and became very, very arrogant. And they took the weights away, and I got my hands on them. So what I did is I made a really nice weight pile at the range for cert.
There you go.
That was our PT with a purpose, and it only lasted like a month. And he found out what I did, and he took them away because it was me involved.
Yeah,
He made
personal.
it personal. He made it personal. Shame on him for doing that, man. I was just trying to benefit the team.
Speaking about personal, right? We've mentioned personal a few times. Do you have any advice for young officers coming in and they take things personal? Because I did come in and take things personal. If an inmate would do something to me.
Oh man, yeah, I hear you loud and clear. I've done that too. Yeah, you got to try to be professional as possible in today's world because you will get terminated
Right.
with a quickness.
Right.
You got to suck it up, man. Don't let the guy talk enough. Don't let him talk shit to you. You hold your ground, but you got to pick your fight. There's a
Right.
place and time for that. Let your sergeant know. Get your partners on board. Maybe search his house and let him know what time it is. Pull him aside, and you got to isolate him from his buddies. That's
For
the whole
sure.
key.
Speaking about isolating, and one of the most dangerous spots was the chow halls. Yeah, would you
Wow.
agree? Would you agree that the chow hall was extremely dangerous?
God. Hey, oh man, we were feeding hot meals back at that time for lunch. So 3 hot meals a day, and I was the steam line cop back then, and there was no. Everything was open. Inmate could just reach across and grab shit, and we had some really good gunners back then, and the shotgun went off a few times when I was in the dining hall, and I would just crawl underneath the steam line because they're shooting bird shot.
Wow.
And yeah, I never got hit, but one sergeant got shot in the face with it. Good man too. But he came back to work. He was good. He was good. But yeah, the guns were always going off at dinner and lunch, breakfast, all the time. The dining hall was the spot.
Man. So riot, Salinas Valley, extremely violent. You guys are quelling it. Did you love the lieutenant job initially? Did it wear on you? I know you mentioned that's what you wanted. You said you had arrived.
Yeah, hey, listen, man. I'm telling you, I got a taste of it, just a little bit of it, with the clerks did everything, man. I used to sit back and watch my supervisors living the life, man.
Right.
I should have promoted earlier, man. And yeah, the violence did wear on you, and it got to the point once I got into my 40s, started getting old. I'll tell you when it started getting old, when you're in charge and you're responsible.
Exactly.
That's when, like, hey, you can't do that.
Let me real quick. Was there ever times where an officer did something and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe you did this?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was a good one. I was in ATSEG and I'm helping him feed, and this inmate tried to spit on me and he missed, and I said, I'm gonna deal with you later. And I said, all right. So I took a mental note. I was busy, man, just busy. Well, a little while later, I get a call on my radio. Hey, LT, you need to report to building so and so. That's the same building that convict was in there. And I go, and this guy's covered in oatmeal, head to toe.
Yeah.
Covered in oatmeal, and he pepper sprayed him. So I looked at my cops who were actually good friends till this day. And I just looked at them. I didn't want them to lie to me. I just sort of like, did this guy grab your baton and that's why you pepper sprayed him? And he goes, exactly what happened. And that's what they wrote, and that's what I went with. And yeah. And I pulled that officer side. He was getting ready to promote to sergeant, and he was a stud, man. All the cops looked up to him. And I pulled him aside. I go, these cops, you're going to have sergeant stripes on, and they're going to do everything in their power to impress you. Everything in their power. The stuff you're doing to me, they're going to do to you double. And mark my words. And they did, and we laughed about it because they were doing all kinds of crazy, unauthorized bullshit, and he was trying to clean it up,
I used to, like shit like that would happen, right? I used to jump in their ass, pull them aside silent, isolate them and be like, hey, don't you ever do that fucking shit again, man.
Yeah.
But there was a misconception that we don't police our own, or that it's a free-for-all, or that we're all on board with some type of green wall type of mentality.
Well, green wall was deep in Salinas Valley.
Yeah, back then.
CTF brought activated that green wall. They brought that green wall to Salinas Valley, and I knew all the players, and oh yeah, that opened up. The feds came in, opened a big investigation, and one guy I heard he had a green wall tattoo on his calf. He
Mm.
had covered it up right when he heard they were coming. Just yeah, that green wall was horrible stuff.
So real quick, what would be some repercussions of us not policing our own?
Well, the inmates are going to police it. They're going to get involved. They're going to start stabbing more cops, and a few cops did get stabbed over there. Then the last thing you want is have the administration open investigations on you. But it's changed because unfortunately I was forced to go to that OIA school, a bunch of crock of shit. But when I was getting investigated when I was younger, when I was a CO, it was prove that I'm lying to you. Prove to you that I'm lying. I told an investigator one time, it's not a lie if you believe it. It stunned him. Man. I saw his look. He's like, "What the hell did you just tell me?"
Yeah.
What a lie if you believe it. And it was harder to prove that you did something wrong. But in today's world, it's like prove that you're innocent.
Oh
And
man. Oh man.
terminate you, suspend you, put you out on leave. It's a lot harder now on these guys.
It is almost
It's,
damn near impossible. Damn near
yeah, it's really
impossible.
hard. They got cameras. I heard. Oh gosh, that's fun.
Yeah, I'm glad we're talking about this, and putting it out there, especially coming from the California prison system. We got a lot of people from the East Coast watching all over the world. That's how it operates inside of the California prison system. It's the inmates and the staff kind of, I'm not going to say work hand to hand because that's not the terminology, but I mean there will be law and order, right? There will be order
Oh, no doubt. Yeah,
and
yeah.
respect.
We police our own. They police their own.
Right.
To a degree, the inmates are running the penitentiary. To a degree, but we got the firepower. But like I'm watching the news a lot, and they're talking about defunding police agencies behind the use of force.
Yeah.
And they got it wrong, in my humble opinion. A CDC cop goes to the annual range once a year to qualify. Once a year, he's getting paid big bucks for what he might have to do. That's deadly force, but he's only shooting once a year. They need to put more money into the training of these officers. They've done a good job. They have thrown a lot more money into it, but they need everybody should be qualifying quarterly, because it's not if, it's when you're going to have to pull that trigger. They need to be trained better, and this will stop a lot of the nonsense.
Okay. You are IST, you are an OG. The department went really big on de-escalation techniques. So much so that when I was a lieutenant at Donovan, I was watching officers get slapped around by inmates, and the officers were still trying to verbally de-escalate that situation.
What?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. You ever heard stories like that?
Where they're slapping them around, telling them to
Literally, no, physically putting hands on them, staff assaults, and they're just stuck in that goofy loop of trying to de-escalate a situation.
Once they put hands on you, it's open season. So the cuffs are on. You do what you got to do to save yourself.
I like how that came out so like smooth and flawless, man. But yeah, it's the truth.
You do what you got to do until the cuffs are on.
Correct.
Once they make the cuffs, if you hit on them,
Yeah, it's all
you're out of pocket.
correct.
Shame on you.
Man. As a lieutenant, you said you did acting captain. Did that get more political?
Oh my gosh, did it? Yeah, but you know what? I have to say, I worked 28 plus years. That was the easiest assignment I ever had in my life. Oh my gosh, I say, well, Soledad wasn't as active as a level 4. That has a lot to do with it. But half the time, by 10 o'clock, I was done with my day. And now the reason I did it because my friend was the AW, so I took the assignment, and I say by 10 o'clock, I was done with my day. You go to meetings, and 50% of the meeting is bullshit. They're talking about vacations, what car they're driving, talking about someone's behind their back because they're not present.
Right.
And I just sort of kept to myself as a captain. The AW actually told me at one time, all these captains don't like you. And I go, yeah, I don't like them either. And I'm good with that. And I didn't say too much in the meetings. I didn't want them in my business.
Right.
I talked to the AW alone. This is what's going down. And I watch them cry, and oh God, and it was such an easy job. The most stressful part, believe it or not, is I didn't like the hours. I didn't like getting off at 4:30
Mm.
because my family were all gym rats, and that was affecting family time because we went to the gym as a family then, and I didn't like that at all. And that's the main reason I started thinking of myself more than the department, putting them first. I said, I want to be home at night again, because we were getting home late from training, and it's like I turned that shit down. No more acting. I'm done. And as far as promote and hire, I didn't think about it.
It's so unfortunate and actually disappointing that we are a million, probably $1 billion department, right? We get paid hundreds of $1,000s a year, and the upper administration act like childish gossip. The thing that worries me about it is they are in charge of lives, staff members and inmates.
Yeah, yeah. There's there's some OG administrators that started as a CO and paid their dues on the line. I respected them in their opinion. They didn't. Some of them didn't forget how it was to be a correction officer. But then you get some character with a bachelor's degree out of maintenance, and they're administrator. What the hell's that about?
What's your take on that?
I never wrap my head around that, man. Then they make them the AOD officer of the day, and it's a Saturday. We have a riot. They better pray they have a really good watch commander lieutenant who's going to handle that stuff. I never had a problem with AOD. I always handled it, and they always listened to me. But I just couldn't understand why everybody should be custody, in my opinion, as far as administration. It would go so much smoother.
I did have a problem with the AODs when they would lie and say, no, I didn't contact them, or no, I didn't tell them something. Then I would just shoot the emails.
Yeah, I never had, fortunately, I never had to go through that. I was very fortunate.
Real quick, I just thought of something. Did you experience the three strike law, the 90s? Was there an influx of what was that? What did that look like?
No, man, 3 strikes, you were done. And life, at one time in California, life was life.
Right.
There's convicts, man, that I grew up with, you could say, in the system. That I was a 21-year-old, they're a kid. And when I retired, some of those guys were still there. They came up looking for me. Somehow it leaked out I was retiring and came up and looked at me in this old crypt. And I wasn't that type of, I didn't have open door policy for convicts, never, ever. And, but I let them in my office and we talked, and we were reminiscing about riots and this incident and that incident. And I think I might have even shook his hand. I didn't shake convicts' hands. That just wasn't me. I wasn't that guy. In fact, my clerks, I always had clerks working for me, and we had a deal going. First off, I wanted them to be a lifer, so they weren't going nowhere. And they had a bachelor's degree, and if they got in trouble in any way, they were done. They were going to get the if I did the hearing, they're going to get the max because everybody's watching. Because I didn't believe in having a kid. That term they use, convicts. That's my kid. Fuck all that. And that wasn't me. I didn't play that shit. I had one clerk that I moved around with me, but we had an understanding. He was a Southerner, OG, and I go, like, you get caught up, I'm gonna book that ass. Everyone's gonna be watching. I'm not gonna be the weak link, and it worked. He never got caught up.
Man, at Donovan, we were having our program clerks overdosing in the program office, like one right after another. Then they would reward them by sending them to the non-designated programming facility with all the incentives. True story.
Yeah. I have stories like that, but I don't think I can make them public. They're pretty graphic,
It's all good. Let's not go there.
Yeah.
But
hey, I got a story for you. I want to share.
Shoot it.
It's in the early '80s. I had probably a year there, so it's like '83, and I'm working R&R on third watch, and was working with some senior cops that were Vietnam veterans. I never forgot. They were hardcore. These guys, I looked up to them, and they're passing the game on. And we're unloading the bus, and I'm looking, and sure enough, there's my school teacher, my 7th grade school teacher. And thank God he didn't like me as a student, because what he was doing on Fridays, he would take about 3 or 4 boys camping. He'd bring your sleep bag, and we're going to go camping somewhere. And my friends would laugh at me saying, he doesn't like you. You're never going camping. Thank God he didn't like me.
Wow.
Well, there he was, man. I went into shock. Yeah, I went into shock, and I told these. I should have told them, man. I told the senior cops, "That's my teacher." They started laughing and started pumping me up. You better go handle this stuff. You better go. That's all they kept saying. Go handle it. I didn't know what they meant. Like, well, am I supposed to donkey punch this guy or what the
Yeah,
hell? So what I did, I put him on the wall, and I didn't know what to do. So I kicked his legs out, and I'm patting him down. And after he's been strip searched, and I whispered in his ear, "How does it feel to have your D student calling shots now?" Because
man.
that's exactly what I got, a D in that class. My dad whipped my ass for that. I never forgot. So I was payback. And I said it several times, and he finally realized who I was, and I saw his face. And that was enough right there. I was like, yep, I'm running shit now. And we called control and put him in a real special cell. I'm not sure he was AB associate or what the hell, but he was a hardcore white boy. And I personally escorted him down there. And I shouldn't have did this, but I did. We keyed the door open. I kicked him, pushed him in there, and said, "He's a Chester." I could have got him killed, man.
Man,
You know, I was
man,
really
man.
dumb on my part. I was lacking some maturity then, and but he survived the night, and they shipped him out. The guy must have gave him a pass and told him to go find a new cell. They moved him to North facility, and I got on the phone and called my buddy up. Said, "Hey, man, I need a favor. He's over there now. Handled it, you know." And they ended up shipping him out of the prison. I don't know where he went after that, but actually, one of the inmates was he worked for me. He was actually someone I went to the academy with. You got time for that?
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah, yeah. Sure enough, he was a correction officer. He worked out of Susanville. He was a yard cop, and he molested
Oh man,
his biological kids.
I don't want to hear that, but yeah, I
Oh,
hear you. I hear
well,
you.
here's how he got caught. He was taking them to some motel over there in Susanville, and he was taking Polaroids of them.
You
And the
know,
Polaroids he didn't like, he threw them in a dumpster. A
you,
homeless guy found these Polaroids and took them to the cops. Well, his first name, his name was Larry. Larry gets popped. Larry gets put in the protective housing unit because he's a CO. Well, Larry volunteers. He wants to become a porter in the ADSEG. And sure enough, there I am. And at that part, I wasn't the same 21-year-old guy. I was a little evil back then.
yeah,
I
yeah,
was hard. The inmates make you that way. I
right.
become hard. And we just mentally broke him down every day. Every day we were gambling with this guy. Like he gained a lot of weight. This convict gained a lot of weight while he was working down there with us. And I tell him, how many push-ups could you do in the academy? And look at you now. Then we bet. Like, I'll bet you a case of beer Larry can't do 10 push-ups. And this went on for a while. And then I promoted out of there. He's lucky. And I don't know what happened to him. He probably discharged. I don't know how much time he got.
Up until this point, since I've been on this YouTube, I have not spoken on stuff like that, but that is perfect timing because for the viewers out there, there's a lot of files that I read. Right after a while, I stopped reading them, and what he just explained was these monsters hurting their own biological children in that manner,
Oh, yeah.
or grandchildren, or nieces, nephews, and I could not. Just talking about it is upsetting my stomach, and you
Oh,
have
yeah.
to deal with them. You have to talk to them. You have to interact with them. You see them praying in the breakfast table, and it was too
Yeah.
much. It's too much. It's too
Yeah, yeah,
much.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you got to deal with them, man. And, they're trying to hide, man, out there in broad daylight. But there is prison justice to let the public know.
Let's turn this story around, man. Back in the old days, there was no SNY yard. Let's talk about some prison justice when they would find out somebody like that hit a GP yard. Would they
Oh,
last long?
no, no, they're mopping them up left and right.
All right,
Mopping them up, mopping them up. Yeah.
my heart feels better now, man.
Yeah. Yeah, the SNY yard that blew up in the department's face. I never got a taste of that, and I'm glad I didn't. But I
Ooh,
heard that just blew up in their face.
bad, man, all bad. So you got out in 2010.
And yeah, 2010. Yeah, I started burning time in 2010, but on paper, I retired on my 50th birthday.
So still C files, right? You never seen it go to the computer system.
No, C files.
Tell me about a riot where you have to pull 300 C files, man.
Yeah, yes. You'd have to designate a couple S and E's to go pull files, and their whole job would be the whole night just pulling files, bringing them over, and that was a lot of work for those guys. I actually did that as a officer a few times, pulling files for the sergeant and LT.
So I would like to know, man, as a supervisor, are you just sitting there flipping through files and looking at maybe enemy concerns or previous
As
just
far as what doing what
like to rehouse them in AdSeg
oh,
or
you talking about like what do you call that when they come off the bus?
um
Triplexing,
uh
triplexing. When they come off the bus, you have to house them.
the intake, yeah.
Yeah, intake. Yeah, yeah. That's what you're looking for. Enemies, and document what gang they're in, and no one ever taught me that. I had to learn at Salinas Valley, and it was wrong. My first day, well, the first day a bus arrived, they made me acting captain, and I was a lieutenant for a couple weeks.
Man.
Wow, what the hell? I don't even know the lieutenant's job, and they make me acting captain, and then I'm triplexing, and I didn't know how to triplex. I just winged it, and I just said, "I hope no one gets killed tonight."
Yeah,
That
that's
was just
not
wrong, man. That's just wrong, man.
I hear you. That did not sit well with me. Having to worry like, man, did I house this guy in the
Yeah,
right
yeah,
place? Because if he gets stabbed, it's on me. It's on me.
yeah. Uh, just like control, the counts.
Right.
Uh, I saw a few sergeants have like nervous breakdowns in control because they couldn't clear a count, and I felt bad for them because they didn't get no training,
I'm one of them. I,
formal training,
I,
none. Go in there and do it.
I'd rather be on the line with inmates and being counting than crunching numbers in central control, man. It used to give me
I'd rather
anxiety.
be in a riot. Yeah, yeah. Some people were made for it and they thrived on it. I didn't. I did it for like a year and a half on first watch, and I never bounced a count, thank God. But yeah, I didn't like control.
You have
Not even.
you have any escape stories or experiences?
Yeah, Salta had a lot of escapes back then. The funny part is we were a level 4 override, and all we had was one fence, and it wasn't electrical.
Wow.
It wasn't electric fence. It was just one fence with barbed wire. These guys on the night yard were hopping the fences all the time. The guns were going off, and yeah, went on a few pretty exciting escape details. One guy was out there living with the field workers, living off the land. He lasted like 3 days out there, and they finally got him. But yeah, there was a lot of escapes in Soledad.
Man.
I used to
Uh,
like doing those 115 hearings, and just pick their brains, in general. I used to pick the brains I would purposely like a dirty cop. That's my pet peeve, a fucking dirty cop. Oh,
right.
well, we had this lieutenant, and once she promoted, she sort of isolated herself from the line staff. She really didn't talk to none of us. She'd be in her office with her clerks, and that's who she talked to. Well, this one clerk had some game, and he started manipulating her, and he landed up getting her fired. They landed up moving in together, and she got fired and had to go out of state to work. But he landed up becoming a porter when I was a sergeant, and I recognized him, and I go, have that guy come clean my office. And I played him like a flute. And he starts cleaning my office, and I act like I'm doing stuff. Then I go, hey, man, aren't you that convict who used to hook up with that one LT? And he goes, yeah, that was me. And I go, oh, man, you're a playboy, man. You got mad skills. I was blowing his ego up, and he was loving it. And they go, can you tell me how you broke her down? And that's all I wanted to hear, so I could pass that information on. How did he break her down? And he gave her a real subtle compliment one day, just real subtle. And she didn't say nothing back. He says, okay, the door's open a little bit. And he started doing that. And then he told me how he reeled her in. One day, it was slow in the office, and he just poured his guts out about his life, what he went through. And in return, she did the same. And that's when he had her. So how she got popped, she's on parole, and she moved him in. How dumb can you be? The parole agent went there to do a search, and he opened the closet, and all there was a bunch of CDC uniforms.
Did you see did you see that a lot in your career in your 28
Yeah,
years?
I saw a lot of that, man. Saw a lot of it. Saw a lot of it. Knew some of the people who did it, and disappointed me. old familiar stuff. I just could never wrap my head around that. I had a actually listen to this. I got a good one for you. My in ADSEG, the lockup units, everybody's pretty close. And my sergeant pulled us in, me and my partner Jack, and goes, "Hey, I want to bring this officer in, and what do you guys think?" And I go, "Oh heck yeah, he's solid," and he was. It was a good cop. Worked the line. We'll bring him in. He's gonna be your relief. But when he came in, there was something off. It was just a gut feeling me and Jack had, and we kept him at a distance on purpose. And he was calling it on us. He goes, "You guys always keep me out of the loop, blah blah blah." And he was bringing drugs into an our tier to these PHU inmates who were in the back, and we were back there tearing their cells up, just giving these guys a blues because we knew they were dirty, they were doing something. So we're always in their cells, and they never got upset with us. They wouldn't say a word. What happened? How he got flipped? He had a girlfriend who was friends with all the visitors, and he started socializing with these people off duty and drinking with them, and they convinced him to bring drugs in, and he ruined his fucking career. He was a good cop at one time, and how he got popped. He got arrested right in front of us, and come to find out years later, me and my partner were under investigation too at the time. They didn't know how big it was,
Oh, okay.
and we're all walking out together. And I saw my lieutenant, who I got on great with. He looked at me, and he just stared at me. He wouldn't smile, didn't say hi. I go, "Something's off, man. Something's off," because it wasn't like him. Then we get to the gate, the entrance building, and there's a sheriff car there. There's people in suits, the squad's there, and they called him aside and put him in handcuffs. And see, this is a different time. We used to buy 2 beers at the liquor store right down the road and drink them on the way home. Not saying it's right. That's how it was.
Right.
Well, I got these 2 beers on my lap, and I'm drinking them, and I'm going to the gym, make it worse. And I see the car that Dave's in. See, there he is, that unmarked car. So I slowed down because I want to see him one last time. And when they passed me, I sped up, and I was driving next to him. I got my beer and I went like that. I showed it to him and took a sip. And I saw him for the very first time about 6 months ago, and we recognized each other. And I was talking to a friend. He's standing right by me, but I had nothing to say to him, man. He's dirty, man. He's no good in my eyes. He never will. Yeah, that's it. Once I ghost you like that's forever. You're a dirty cop. I
You
don't got
know,
time for that.
I feel the same exact way about you like that, man. When it comes to dirty cops like that, and I like how you said you kept them at distance when you started. Your little radar went up because
Vibe, man. That's all we had was a vibe, and I'm glad we had that vibe.
yeah, I haven't run into any dirty cops that I had knew previously or that got caught up, and but I would probably just shun them or look the
You're
other way.
exactly. You shut them, and they don't exist. They don't exist. And I see some people like that in town, and I just don't look at them. They don't exist. I don't know you. I don't know who you are. I thought I knew you, but I don't. You
You know,
know,
a lot of people say that they got flipped or this and that, but I don't know. I can't wrap me. That couldn't happen to me. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like
I,
I wouldn't.
I got that shit. Hell no. Gonna give up my career for some bullshit? Those cell phones now. I heard they're going for like 1,500. Did you? What are you hearing?
Initially they were 3,500, and then
Oh my
they got
gosh!
so low to $800. Like selling them on the yard. So there was
Right, right.
plenty of them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. There's just too much of that shit going on. They're making good money now. I was making when I started in '82, I was making 1609 a month, and I was happy.
Man,
Oh, I was so happy. Had my own place. I was happy. I was really happy with that money. Now they're making a grip, so there's no excuse to be dirty. You want to be dirty. Yeah, I saw one time this dirty cop. He got fired, and he's probably doing time now. He was real dirty. I walked by him, and he was talking to these convicts, and I heard another convict say about him, goes, he wants to be a convict so bad it's killing him.
what the
I just
hell?
mentally, yeah. You're not gonna, you can't go to your supervisor based on a quote. They're gonna look at like you're crazy. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I distanced myself from him, and he got caught at work selling drugs. He got caught and arrested.
Yeah, I mean, they always get caught. That's what it seems like. They always get
Well, they
caught.
all get caught. They
Yeah,
all get caught. It's not if, it's when. Totally.
One dude, it took 15 years, man. They barely gaffled the guy up. And I used to carpool with them. They gaffled him up not too long ago. 15 years, that's a long time.
Yeah, yeah, it's a long career of being dirty. That's a long time. Yeah, you just this the stuff you're gonna see. Like, it's really sad. What I'm gonna tell you, man. But in the mid '80s, we had our warden at Soledad. He was a good man. He lived on grounds, and he found him dead in his house on grounds. And they said allegedly he shot himself with a revolver. So he was still alive, and the security squad stayed with him those days he was in the hospital. But that case is still open. The case is still open as a homicide.
Really?
I think someone killed him. Just my humble opinion. Someone there, and a scandalous department can be, and that case is unsolved to this day, man.
That's
That was a
crazy.
good man right there.
Man. With the way the department has changed, man, you left in 2010. It changed drastically,
That's what I
man.
heard.
What advice would you give to these youngsters that just came from Starbucks, man, with their shiny new uniforms and backpacks to survive a marathon of a career?
I'll tell you what I've been doing the past. I've been doing this since I was a sergeant. I've been mentoring young people who want to get in law enforcement in general, but mainly corrections, and I mentor them through the whole process because I worked in Fresno for a little off and on with an interview process, and I learned a lot there. And I was passing that knowledge on to these young people, and I tell them right at the beginning, "Hey, you're going in because it's the money. The money's good, and that's what you're there for. But it's not for everybody. It is not for everybody. And I'm not going to judge you if it doesn't work out for you because it's not for everybody. And just keep their civilian friends because I even went to a point where I distanced myself from family, and if you didn't work for the department, I really couldn't relate to you. Then I even made it worse. I was, had a own little car going. Just keep your civilian friends, keep your nose clean, and you gotta don't lose your identity, man. You gotta have some outside hobbies. But one thing I did, I'm proud of myself. I reinvented myself when I retired. I worked at Max Fit Sports Nutrition. The owner became buddies with him, and he gave me the opportunity to reinvent myself. He made a position up. I was outside marketing, and I worked in the gyms. And it got to the point now where people see me in town to this day. They look at me, oh, that's that power lifter, that
Oh,
couple that competes in powerlifting, or oh, it's that guy who worked at Max Fit. So it's not the retired lieutenant, and I like that because that's who I really am. I'm a
right.
wife. That's our deal, powerlifting.
That's cool, man. I could understand that. Now, for the troubled youth, right? That it's a whole new generation running the streets, carrying guns, shooting guns, taking lives. What message do you have for them once they hit the pen? What can they expect in
It's
reality?
convict.
Convicts.
Oh, they're fucked. You know
Oh,
what? You're for. There's a documentary I came out on, just a brief little blurb. I forgot the name of it, but I told this convict, and when I was interviewing him in R&R, that he said he wasn't a racist. So you don't have to be, but you're going to run with your own people. Keep your nose clean. Don't make friends. You're going to run with your own people. You might not be a racist in your heart, but you're going to run with the white boys. You understand me? That's who you're going to run with. Just don't make friends. Keep your nose down, and you better hope your paperwork's right. I'm not
now,
going to say
now, if a young inmate comes in thinking he's a Billy Badass and thinking he's going to run his own program in there, is that going to work out for him?
no. I had a guy like that in ADSEG when I was a lieutenant, and he told me, "I'm going to be your worst nightmare." He told me, a little southerner, little guy, and I said, "Well, we're going to accommodate you with the use of force the minute you act up. We will accommodate you." I was professional with him, and he was excited to put some work in.
Right,
Well, he did on the yard. He tried to stab someone, and he got shot with a block gun in the head.
man.
It fucked him up. He could no longer talk right, slurred, and I started threw it in his face. When I went to see him at the 115 hearing, I threw it in his face. How do you like me now? I told you, and he kept his head down, and it didn't work out for him. It did not work out for him.
Man, yeah, I've seen that block gun do some damage, man.
Oh man, yeah, yeah, oh totally. I never got to shoot the block gun as an officer or sergeant, but as a lieutenant, I let him shoot it twice. What the heck's that about? Just wrong place, wrong time, and there I
Yeah.
was.
No, I hear you. So, before we close out, is there any last words you want to say? Any messages? I'm glad you came on here, man, and shared your story, dude. It's awesome.
Yeah, I like to come back. There's so many stories I got, but if you looking to get on with the Department of Corrections, again, the money's really good. You can have an incredible retirement. You're going to buy a home. You're going to go do the nice vacations, have the nice cars. Everyone drives a nice car out there, but it's not for everybody. It is not. It's just not. It's you're gonna if you get in there, don't quit. If you can survive the politics and bullshit, try to find a niche. Maybe go to First Watch, go to a tower. I had a friend do a career in a tower, and we're still in touch to this day, and we laugh about it. And he told me he could hear the stress in my voice on the radio talking, and try to find somewhere where you can hide for your whole career. And you can do it. You can actually hide. Promoting is not for everybody. I don't judge nobody who don't want to promote. It's not for everybody. There's times uh, when I was a lieutenant, I would look at these COs and I'm like, damn, I wish I was a CO and
Right.
laugh about it, because these guys are working smarter, not harder. I can't say I did that all the time.
Hey, believe it or not, Rudy, unfortunately, there is no place left to hide, man. Especially, there's no more places to hide. You can't even be a build. No, seriously, you can't even be a building cop or
How
you,
about a tower cop?
a tower. Maybe,
That's what I'm talking about. Being a
maybe.
tower cop, you
Yeah,
know?
but you got to have like 25 years in, or 20
Yeah.
plus.
Yeah, my partner got lucky, man, and he realized being down there on the main line wasn't for him, and he went to a tower and did his whole career up there, and he's happy as a motherfucker.
Yeah, that's so. There it is, youngsters. If you can hide it out, man. I mean, it's a career. You got to last, right? You got to collect that pension at the end. That's what it boils down
Yeah,
to.
yeah, yeah. Hey, I'm gonna give you a call tomorrow. What time's the best?
Let me close out right here real quick, and then stay on the thing. So there you guys have it. Thank you, Rudy, for sharing your story, and the rest of you guys keep pushing forward.